Welcome to Equal Entertainment. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. For years, sports and music fans alike have been hit with massive charges on Ticketmaster. The event sales supergiant is facing a lawsuit that alleges the company engaged in fraud, price fixing, and antitrust violations. As Taylor Swift hits the road for her Eras tour, fans are demonstrating in front of the LA Courthouse, demanding answers. Many Taylor Swift fans couldn't get Eras tour tickets without paying scalpers inflated prices. The plaintiffs argue Ticketmaster has a monopoly that allows it to charge high fees and take advantage of fans. It owns 70% of the market after merging with Live Nation in 2010, and some fans want regulators to undo that combination.
It's not fair what we had to go through to get our tickets. I still haven't been able to get tickets. I'm 25 years old. I've loved Taylor for 15 years, and I saved up for months and months for the Eras tour. We knew it was going to happen. I had $500 saved, and that should have been enough to buy me floor seats for what Taylor wanted to sell her tickets for. But unfortunately, it, Live Nation stopped that, and so it's wrong. We need to end the merger.
Ticketmaster says it's sorry for what happened with the Swift concert tickets. It's pledging to improve future sales, and so is the artist herself. Swift says she's protective of her fans and that it's excruciating to watch the struggle to get tickets for her tour. Some members of Congress appear to be keeping an eye on the Swifties' plight as well, even calling in the Live Nation president for a hearing. The fight for bodily autonomy is taking place all over the country, and a new Prime Video series isn't shying away from the topic. The Power follows teenage girls who acquire mysterious gifts of superhuman ability. There's so much to love about this show. Let's continue my conversations with the cast, creator, and the novel's author, where we discuss the themes of today's issues in the storyline. Congratulations on the series, first of all. And then I'd love to go to you, Edwina, first and ask you about your character, Helen, who is really very much a voice of reason amid all of the chaos that is happening. And she's got to be the voice of reason with Margot, who is often off the rails. So would you talk about being that grounding point of the series?
Well, first of all, thank you for even picking up on that. The world has changed in a very dramatic way, seemingly overnight. Suddenly, there's fire everywhere, and there's planes crashing, and there's buildings, set ablaze, and we're trying to figure out what it is. And I think Helen is just extremely proactive, right? I'm trying to stay 15, 20 steps ahead of Margot, who has a family and she's got life happening, right? But I'm trying to get her and our office to stay on track as far as how do we deal with this. And for me, I'm from Washington, D.C., which is a very political city, right? But I had to do a lot of research, like what percentage of what we're told as Americans in the press is what's actually happening behind the scenes, and what do people actually know that they're not sharing with us as citizens. And I felt like through this journey as Helen, I was able to see how in the political realm you are negotiating, right? And so as the series progresses, I think everybody has to deal with, is the power for good? Is the power for evil? Is it for corruption? Is it for elevation, right? Are we uplifting? Are we destroying? And so I think that each of us in our own way begins to get in those gray areas when it comes to the power, and our political realm not excluded.
And then also Haley and Ali, I wonder, would you talk a little bit about the idea of having this power and, coming into your bodies in a different way, because that becomes a huge part of this series. And Haley, would you please?
I would say within Allie's character, when she's surviving this brutal attack in this abusive home, it's really about her taking charge and taking back her body, because it's been through some traumatic events ever since she was a young girl. Yeah. So I would say it was about her taking control of her body and taking back what was hers in the first place, and the power of her voice, and to really just say no and have the boldness again and the confidence within the power. And it was about just her taking back her body.
Yeah. And for Joss, I have this really touching scene with Margot, where we're talking about how growing up without the power meant living in a constant state of fear And women teach other women to please be careful. Text me when you get home. Put your keys between your fingers if you're walking home late at night. Only put one earbud in when you're running. Please don't put in two, because you have to always be aware of your surroundings. And the power changes that, to have, again, agency in your own body, to reclaim that, to step out into the world with less of a weight on your shoulder. That it changes everything. And Joss also has a younger sister, Izzy, and like, imagine growing up in that kind of safety. Like, who would I be if I simply existed with no fear? And I loved that question for Joss. That was what I was constantly trying to answer.
For you, Tim, I mean, this is Naomi's novel, but for you, would you talk about this journey of getting on board with the power, and what really sparked, no pun intended, what sparked your interest?
Well, I mean, it's a huge challenge to translate to the screen, although it is written almost as though it's scenes from an imagined television show, but it does jump around all over the world. So, we follow 6 characters in 3 continents, and, creating Lagos, South Carolina, Seattle, London, Eastern Europe, that presents some production challenges.
Yeah.
Huge cast, many of whom are young, and that was a big search. And I'm really proud of the casting. I'm really proud of the work our designers did in creating all the different countries in as few as possible. The main thing I'd say is create something really exciting, a really exciting drama that is also really happening in the world, that is ever more urgent.
Yes. Well, I want to touch on some of that. I read The Power when it came out, Naomi. It's such an incredible novel. And, it's just becoming increasingly more prescient. And especially, here we had Roe v. Wade overturned. And this idea of bodily autonomy is more pressing than it was a few years ago, it feels. Would you talk about how that plays into the series?
Sure. So great joys for me of working on the novel was whenever I listened to the radio in the morning and felt really upset or angry, I could just go and sit down at my desk and pop that straight into the book, but reverse it. It happened to the men. Not everything, obviously, but yeah, that was very good. So I think we took the same approach actually with making the show, which is keep it as up to date as we possibly can. So there are characters in there like Urban Docs, who's the sort of horrible online men's rights troll, who when I wrote him, he was based on my experiences as a woman working in video games in 2014, 2015, experiencing Gamergate, which was online targeted harassment of women working in games. And now we've brought him really up to date with the kinds of horrible stuff that young men are being served by social media platforms, by streaming platforms. So I think the secret is just don't lose your edge. Being interested by, keep on putting it into the show. And I think, to be able to do that in a way is very important to me, to be able to do that in a way which, serve some sugar with the medicine, like to be able, exciting and fun, and the story just barrels on. And then by the end, I hope you're going, oh, I have thought some really interesting thoughts now. Didn't expect that.
Amazing. Well, they are asking me to wrap, but thank you for that. And Naomi, I also have to say I'm a big fan of Disobedience. So, some beautiful storytelling.
I hope to meet you in person one day.
I would love that. I would love to get to England. I'm over here in LA, and I love England. So I think I could live there. Thanks again to the cast and the series creators for joining me. The Power hits Prime Video on March 31st. You can open the Advocate Channel YouTube page for more streaming news and full interviews. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and that's what's happening in entertainment.